Welcome, Ciji. It's lovely to have you here. You're only a few weeks post-op from your excision surgery with Dr. Sechkin, and you're one of the upcoming speakers for our Patient Day weekend. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story, for wanting to pass on knowledge to your endo community.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. My surgeon was also Dr. Chu as well. I want to give her the credit. Her and Dr. Sechkin worked simultaneously for a few hours. So they've given me a second lease on life. I'm very thankful.
What made you want to participate in Patient Day and share your story?
I felt very alone during my journey. I have a lot of support, and I'm thankful for the people who have come to cook me meals or send me flowers or offer to watch my kids. But in my suffering, I felt very alone. And I realized I was diagnosed with stage 4 endo almost 10 years ago. And before every surgery, there was a slow lead up. And so I would know and be able to mentally prepare myself that, okay, we're going to need to start preparing for a surgery. But this last time, it came out of nowhere. I mean, yes, there were symptoms, there were signs, but there was no buildup. It just literally hit me out of left field to where back in October of 2022, I was out with the family. It was a normal Sunday looking for a sound system, surround sound system. We were going to have a movie night, and out of nowhere, I start hemorrhaging in the middle of Best Buy with my children. And I was terrified. Luckily, my husband was there, but it was on the other side of the store. So I left, but that was the beginning of a traumatic, long journey that spanned 3 months, which doesn't seem long in the grand scheme of endo, but it was long for me because the bleeding went on until Thanksgiving. I would hemorrhage here and there for hours, and then it would stop, and it was mostly spotting. And then November 9th, I had a saline hysterectogram, which is where they go through the cervix with a catheter and they inflate the uterus with saline. And then they do an ultrasound to see the lining of the uterus. They're looking for polyps. They're looking for fibroids. They did an endometrial biopsy as well. And we're looking for the cause of extended bleeding. I'm thinking that I'm in premenopause because my third surgery removed my left ovary and my hormones had dropped. And so that's what I was thinking. After that procedure is when I really started to hemorrhage, along with having severe abdominal pain, abdominal swelling, like my belly would get super distended. I would have diarrhea, I would have vomiting, and severe cramping, like 9-10 centimeters dilated type contractions that would hit me out of nowhere without warning. So then I was admitted into the hospital. I was admitted into the hospital because at that point, I had been bleeding for over 48 hours. My blood count was low. And they basically kept me on morphine. I kept telling them I'm an endo patient. I have stage 4 endo, but they admitted me as a GI patient. And nobody would hear me. Nobody would listen to me. I had called my gynecologist before going to the hospital to tell her, because I had that surgery or that procedure 2 days prior, and they just told me to go to the ER. There was nothing they could do to help me. So I'm thinking, since they do rounds at that hospital, they're going to come and they're going to see me and they're going to take care of me. They're going to do something. I'm going to get my hysterectomy. But nobody came. And I called the office 3 or 4 days in a row. I called every day. I'm admitted, I'm at Meese Countryside Hospital. This is in Clearwater, Florida. This is where they do rounds. I know somebody's there. Somebody has to be having a baby, right? And finally, on the 5th day, it was November 17th. I won't forget it because it was my daughter's 7th birthday and I missed it. I was in the hospital, and one of the partners from that group came to see me, and she handed me a week's supply of Oralisa. And she told me, start taking these. And it's my last sample. She's like, start taking these and you will start, your bleeding will stop and you'll start to feel better. So that, along with a slew of GI medications that at this point I had an endoscopy, which was fine. It showed mild gastritis, but otherwise I was fine. And I was slated to have a colonoscopy. They did put me on medications for IBS, a medication called Bentyl that really helped with the spasming of the intestines. And it was almost like a pain pill for me, because I stopped having those terrible abdominal cramping, those pains that would just literally bring me to my knees and make me blind. When I was in the hospital, there was a day that I was crying, I was thrashing in bed, and I was just in a horrific amount of pain. And my husband is he was away on a business trip. He was in Dallas. As soon as he heard I was on the way to the hospital, by the time I got to the hospital, he got to the airport and he came home as soon as possible. Like, he was there by morning. I love that man. So he was sitting next to me, I was in bed. He was sitting next to me and he was just head in hands, like, what do we do? Like, I need to get you some help. That's all he kept saying is, I'm going to take care of you and I need to get you some help. And I heard him on the phone. I had woken up from the morphine and I heard him on the phone and I heard him talking about me. And I could tell that he was calling doctors. And sure enough, he was calling places all over the country that he thought would deal with endo, that could help me, that could perform surgery, that specialized in endometriosis, that could get me help. And he called about a dozen places and only 2 said yes. Most places only deal with, specialize with fertility. But being that I had my children and I wanted a hysterectomy, I was done with endo. I was at the end of the road. I couldn't walk from pain. I couldn't live my life in bed at a hospital on morphine. I was missing out on my daughter's birthday. I've never missed a birthday. And it was depressing. It was terrible. And my kids were worried because they knew where I was. They saw mommy had a stomach ache. Mommy was bleeding and they had to call an ambulance because, again, my husband was in Dallas at the time. And it was just me home. Their nanny was here. So I called an ambulance. That was very traumatic for them. And I wanted to get better and I wanted to get home to them. A little off topic, but our family within the last year and a half had experienced massive amount of deaths. We lost an entire generation of grandparents and great aunts and uncles. We had 3 deaths within 2 months of one another, and one was a very tragic. The final death in my family was incredibly tragic and suspicious. We don't know how she died. I have my own feelings on that, but I miscarried. I was pregnant, and the stress of all of that made me lose what I thought was going to be my 4th baby. I kept telling everybody 4 before 40. Everybody's like, you've put your body through so much, like, stop now, you're doing too much. At this point, I had 4 miscarriages. And then, so I miscarried with my first, had my daughter, had my second, had 3 miscarriages. And then I had my 3rd daughter. So I'd miscarried 4 times and now I'm trying again. And finally I'm pregnant, and the stress of everything made me lose that baby. And I was very angry. I was very bitter about it.
Yeah,
and
you never stop grieving. Grieving is not
You
states where
don't.
they
And you know, the
say.
problem is when you are someone that suffers from recurrent miscarriages, it becomes so normal to those around you who know you, not personally. It's very painful for my mother. It's very painful for my husband,
Of
and
course.
it's very painful for me. But the exterior, the support system, my friends, my family, you know, it's just, it becomes just normal, and it's not, it hurts every single time.
Oh, yeah. And
Um,
I also think there's this idea when you're the strong one and people have seen you go through so much, I love the expression check on your strong friends because, you know, having this conversation with you, I've been deemed in the category of a strong friend, but I have endured two really significant losses in the past year and have gone through a lot of my endo journey completely alone, alone in the hospital, alone in recovery. Um, and I've had to really become kind of, oh, I've had to become kind of hardened, not my heart per se, but just my exterior and my spirit, and having to, you know, push through and hoping that my friends will call, but then they just kind of, they just don't. And then when I tell them how hard it is, they try to top it. And it's like, okay, I'm coming to you because I need a friend. It's not that I'm looking for sympathy or I'm complaining or I'm venting, like I'm genuinely in need. And it's hard to find that. It's really hard to find that. I'm fortunate for an amazing mom, but I feel you on that. People are just so used to thinking that, well, you know, you're used to a miscarriage, or you're used to an endometriosis surgery, or you're used to being, you know, not up to par. And it's like, no, you're never used to it. And it's a challenging journey. And I remember a friend saying to me when I think I had my third excision, and she said, well, why do you keep having these surgeries? Like, why do you keep getting this disease? Like, hasn't it gone away already?
almost like it's elective and cosmetic,
Right.
right? I get
Right.
it.
Right.
Mhm.
So, you know, I appreciate you saying that because there's a loneliness. Like we say a lot, like there's 1 in 10, and that's our average, right? In the United States that have endometriosis. And we say a lot, you are not alone. But my God, do you feel that way sometimes? Even with the people, the best of intentions who love you the most, your endo community that you found online or wherever, when
I
you're in those
didn't.
moments, so lonely.
Yeah, I didn't find an endo community online. I found out about one. I didn't because I don't know. I wasn't in denial. I knew I had endo, but I was in baby making mode,
Mm,
and I was focused on completing my family.
right.
And there's guilt with that too. So whenever I went to anyone, or whenever I suffered a miscarriage, or whenever I talked about the struggle, it's like, but you have three beautiful girls and you have babies. And it's like, yes, I do. And then there's guilt with that, because I know so many women. Um, I don't know many women with endo, but I know many women who struggle with infertility and
Mhm.
who have had tragic losses. And I've been there during those tragic losses. And there's like a survivor's
Yeah.
guilt, that I have my children, and they don't deserve that. So it's hard. And I do feel a little self-conscious even talking about my children and trying for more, especially knowing how much of the endo community is trying so hard to have that first baby. I was there. I remember what it felt like. My first surgery was a surgery by chance. It wasn't exploratory. I thought that once I got married, I was 28 and I was going to have a baby, and I wanted a honeymoon baby. So we started trying right away for children. And that didn't happen for me. So And then I started bleeding. I got my period and it was like a spotting period that would never go away. So my doctor said, even though I'm not typically a candidate for it because I never had children, I had tried every birth control. So she recommended the IUD. I know that there was a slim chance that my uterus could deliver it. But I accepted the risks thinking it wouldn't happen to me. And that's exactly what happened. So after 6 months of continuously bleeding now on the IUD, we had to go find it. And when they did the ultrasound to find the IUD is when they found a mass on my left ovary.
Oh.
So, she went in, she just thought, she called it a chocolate cyst, which is like a cyst that bleeds into itself and is basically full of old blood. So yeah. Is that an endometrioma?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, she didn't mention that. But afterwards, when she went in to get it out, she realized I had stage 4 endometriosis, and it was too much. She couldn't operate, basically. She did her best to drain it. And then she closed me up and referred me to someone that she thought could help me. And that was when I had my stage 4 diagnosis. So after that is when I did the Lupron and moved on. But
may I ask, when you were going through your final surgery and you were bleeding continuously, what did they find when they did the final surgery, or hopefully final, I should say fourth, because we never know with endo, unfortunately. I'm knocking on all the
and I
wood
still
for
have
you.
my right ovary left. So
Hmm.
I don't want to get my hopes up. Everybody's like, this is it. This is your new lease on life. And yes, I feel it because I mean, I'm sore from coughing with stitches, but I still feel better than I have felt in, I can't even remember when was the last
Did
time.
they find the cause of the heavy bleeding? Was it adeno? Do you know yet?
So, yes, my cervix was removed, and I believe it was due to adenomyosis. I don't have confirmation on that because my post-op was a celebration. And so I didn't really get that answered, but I intended on asking when I go back in March for my final post-op, my 8-week. That just so happens to coincide with the patient symposium. So they found the back of my rectum was stuck to my cervix. So they had to go in, detach it, straighten it out, and put it back where it belonged. I had a colonoscopy done. It did not, that was not seen. So that I think was the cause of the IBS symptoms, the vomiting, the diarrhea, the severe abdominal cramping as well, because it was only when I ingested something, coffee, food. So they found a large endometrioma in my uterus. So after I lost the baby, after the final death in my family, I had 2 more miscarriages after that. And so me personally, being pregnant 10 times, I knew I'm done. I pushed my body as far as I felt like I should or could. And also I had known I was low on progesterone. So I was doing the progesterone suppositories. I was taking the Tylenol. I was doing everything that I knew to do. And I never got my results back from that saline hysterectogram. Even when I went after the hospital stay to follow up, I was hoping to get those results and I never did. But yeah, they did mention during that they treated that appointment as a pre-op. So they had a surgeon there who had done my 2nd and 3rd surgeries that they just automatically assumed would do my 4th. But that didn't go well. He didn't have a lot of patience to answer questions, and I had questions, and there seemed to be frustration because I thought I was there for a hospital follow-up, and they were under the assumption I was there for a pre-op, but I never got my results. So I'm like, don't we need this before we move forward?
Yeah.
But in that conversation, there was something mentioned about something large being in my uterus. And I had called the nurse of the doctor who had performed that procedure. And they basically were like, if you want your results, feel free to make an appointment, which I was frustrated because I'm like, I already did. But already the patient care had gone down. The trust that I had built with them had been broken, because I felt abandoned in the hospital. I felt like they didn't care that I was there, and they didn't care enough to come see me. They didn't care enough to even they filled the prescription, but they couldn't even send in the paperwork to get it approved by my insurance. I failed Lupron. That's all they had to send in. I mean, I failed everything, but they just had to send in one, and they couldn't even do that. And then it's Thanksgiving, and they're like, well, we're going on vacation. We're closed, right? The office is closed.
Right. Yeah.
So I ended up having to pay almost $1,000 to get a 2-week supply, of which by that point they had upped my dosage to 200 milligrams twice a day from the 150 once a day. So I just stretched that out to once a day. They never sent in that paperwork.
And it's good. I mean, not for anything, but I know from insurance sometimes doesn't even cover those medications, and it's all out of pocket, and you have to go out of country, go to Canada, go through those kinds of prescriptions. It's just, there's so many lapses in the healthcare system, from the financial to the bedside manner. And it's very fortunate when you find a caring patient doctor. Thank you so much, Ciji. I really look forward to meeting you in person.
Likewise. Thank you.